Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk Transformation podcasts, where we try and cut through buzzwords and talk about what actually drives change inside organizations. And today's episode is, of course, no exception. If your company or your team is moving from a project way of working to a product operating model and wonders why Agile and DevOps haven't yet changed the game, hold that thought. My guest is someone who spent 2 decades helping companies truly shift how they deliver value. I'm delighted to welcome Tim Beattie, founder and CEO of Stellify, 20 plus years of Agile and Lean and co-author of DevOps Culture and Practice, and former global head of product at Red Hat's Open Innovation Labs. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Susie. I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for having me and really looking forward to this.
Likewise, it's a pleasure. Tim, at Stellify, you help organizations connect their outcomes, their work, and their teams into living value streams so that they stop measuring activity and start measuring impact. And this is one of the most frequent questions I get on the topic of going agile. What model are you using? How can we be really agile? How can we measure it? How do we know it's working?
Mm.
So I would love to dive into exploring value streams, the measurements, and building product organizations that last, Tim, that actually transform both outcomes and the way of delivering outcomes. So you've worked with hundreds of organizations, a lot of which are claiming to be agile or DevOps driven, but many of them, I think, still behave like waterfall projects in disguise, is the way I would put it. So
Yeah.
when you look across organizations that you've coached, what are the most telling signs for you that they're still in project mode and not yet in product mode?
Yeah, great question. I always when when work is still being organized as programs or projects,
Mm,
and there are plans that have got start dates and end dates.
mm,
That's usually an indicator that the mindset is still in that project mentality, that we're going to bring a group of people together and they're going to work for a finite period of time, and that time is going to end.
mm,
And that was the way large organizations handled change for years, for decades.
mm,
I still see that in many organizations. Um, bec- and why is that so difficult to change? There's a lot of underlying company infrastructure,
mm,
budgeting cycles,
mm,
financial control,
mm,
HR processes, the way people are tagged to departments, cost centers. There's so many things in the underlying ways companies are run themselves that
mm,
is steering that kind of ways of working that we organize in projects. It's understandable why organizations find that it's difficult to change. Where I see organizations trying to get to and seeing some success,
mm,
where they see the value in keeping a group of people together to form a unit, a team.
mm,
That team, the longer they stay together, the higher performing they
mm,
become, the more comfortable and safe they feel with each other, the more experience they get of each other. Um, and we start to roll the work into the team
mm,
rather than staff a project over people and try and put people together. So that moving away from resourcing
mm,
into let's roll the valuable work into the team, and that's the shift we're trying to see. And
mm.
it can be a slow burner for organizations, but when they do it well, the results are really awesome.
Yeah, and we'll come back in a minute to value streams, but just one question before we do, Tim. Why doesn't resourcing, in inverted commas, work anymore? Why do we need to change?
Um, Well, I think resourcing is very oriented around specific skill sets.
Mm,
Um, but that I mean that in two different ways. I mean an individual skill set. So you would resource somebody with a front-end developer. Uh,
mm,
I need a front-end developer to come and do this front-end development task.
mm,
Or I need a DBA, a database administrator, to come and write some DBA scripts. Um, And they're very what I would call I-shaped people. That kind of
Mm,
reporting is I do this thing. I am
mm,
famous for this thing. I do
mm,
this thing and only this thing. And you call on me when you need me. Um, where we get higher performing organizations is where we start to transfer those I-shaped individuals into more T-shaped.
mm,
And by T-shaped means there's still a depth in skill, but there's a breadth of awareness of other skills. So I
mm,
might be a full stack developer. I'm really good at front end, but I also get the back end.
mm,
I like that appreciation and understanding of if I need to, I'll roll my sleeves up and I'll do some back end development. I've got that breadth.
mm,
Um, Even better than a T-shaped is an M-shaped, hard to do with hands.
mhm,
But this is where I've actually maybe got two or three, bits of depth and still a breadth. So I think that's a different kind of resort because resourcing is often it's very tailored to specifics at an
yep.
individual level. And then if we expand that up at a team level, we the traditional kind of um, prevailing mindset is to have teams of specific skills. So you would have the front end development team, or the design team, or the
Mm,
testing team, or the
mm,
documentation team. And none of those teams alone can deliver value, right? None
mm,
of the individuals, if they're I-shaped, can deliver value. When we have T-shaped and M-shaped people and cross-functional teams,
mm,
where the team contains all of the skills needed to deliver value to the end user,
mm,
that's when we get real high performance. That's when we get business agility and high levels of adaptability.
mm,
You can't always resource that
mm,
because sometimes you don't know what skills you need. It has to evolve, it has to emerge. So you can't plan that up front. You've got to learn as you go along.
mm,
And back to that point of long-lived teams, if you've got a long-lived static cross-functional team, you don't need to resource them because that's the fixed unit. That's the bit that's in place.
mm.
Now it's about what is the value that we can roll into that team. So the change is different. It's value management rather than skill resourcing.
Mm. And which brings me really well into this discussion on value streams, Tim, because we've just been discussing the way organizations are designed and set up today. If I look at the concept of value streams, there are two things for me. One is the flow, the idea of flow, so the flow value from idea to customer across all the various respective parts of the organization, but also the end-to-end value stream. So it's not just I'm delivering my little bit of this and then my work's done, tick. So when you talk about value streams, what does it look like structurally in organizations? I mean, we've touched on cross-functional teams.
Yeah.
What else would it look like if I had to engineer or re-engineer my organization to work in value streams?
Yeah, great question. And this, I love thinking and talking about value streams. One of the things orgs are really, really struggle to get right. So, what does it look like? Well, there's two ends to it.
Mm,
At one end, at the beginning, there is some kind of trigger, there is some kind of request, there is somebody has a need,
mm,
somebody needs some value, somebody has a request or an idea or a problem.
mm,
Okay. And this could be an end user, it could be a customer. They want to do something and they're coming into this stream of work in order to get that. It could be a part of the organization where another part of the organization needs something.
mm,
And the beginning of that value stream is defining what is that trigger? What is the ask?
mm,
That's at the left end. At the right end, there is that perceived value. That value is being received. So that person, often it's the same person at the beginning and the end,
mm,
is saying they're happy. I've got that value. I'm now satisfied. I am happy. I've received a value and I am utilizing it and I'm getting benefit from that.
mm,
Everything in between is all of the things that happen between that trigger, that request, and that perceived value. At an operational level, that might be the different steps involved in an end-to-end business process.
mm,
At a more engineering or development value stream, It could be organization, business stakeholder is asking for a new feature in a product,
Yeah.
and that feature is then available and usable. Okay. And that's the value stream about all of the steps involved in doing that.
Mm.
So when you stand back, you see everything end to end. I remember working with a big defense customer, and I just done value stream mapping with the whole customer team.
Mm.
A guy, he looked at it, go, wow, it's pretty complex. And he said, I've worked for this company for 25 years, and I have always understood this part of the value stream because that's my bit. I
Mm.
never realized all of this stuff happened. I never realized all of this stuff happened.
Mm.
Now I see how I fit in because the bit alone that I do, yeah, helps. It's some local optimization of the value stream, but I
Mm.
see the whole and
Mm.
our values being received by our customers. And it was just eye-opening being able to visualize that and show that.
Yeah, and I think it just shows how used to being in our silos we get.
Yeah.
And, often when you say value stream mapping, it's very linked to lean, isn't it? From, on the
Yeah.
supply chain of, the value stream mapping activities. But, many leaders also hear what you mean, more meetings to track flow. So there we have value and flow in the same sentence, but like you say, it's not necessarily perceived in an end-to-end way. So, how can you flip that perception, Tim, in terms of we've touched on the structure, but in terms of the mindset and the metrics, I mean, it's a whole different ball game, isn't it, really? It's
Mm.
that realization is a light bulb that's going to lead to a whole electricity system
Yep.
that is completely different to the way we do things today.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'll tell you an interesting story. I worked with an automotive organization in the Nordics. Um, and yeah, some people think value stream mapping. And there's a very similar practice I like to use called metrics-based process mapping.
Hmm.
Looks very similar, and I use they're two of my favorite tools. A lot of people think you need to do this at the beginning of a piece of work. If
Mm,
you it's the first thing you do. With this particular organization, I didn't do it. I actually have been working with them for nearly a couple of months, and I've been helping them embed in agile processes, Scrum, lots
mm,
of DevOps and continuous integration, continuous delivery. And I worked for a technology company, so we were putting some new technology in. We got to the sort of towards the end of our engagement. I was a consultant, and the one of the key client stakeholders said to me in a morning coaching session, he said, Tim, all of this stuff that we've been doing, I love it. It's so collaborative, it's so visual, it's so energetic. I love the team's energy. I've never seen the team so energetic, and I love that we're showing the product every week.
mm,
My problem is I need to convince my leaders and my bosses that this is a better way of working because they're skeptical.
mm.
They think this looks a bit like a primary school with all of these notes and colors and tape.
It's not proper work.
It's not proper work, yeah, because for them, proper work is spreadsheets. It's
Yeah,
numbers.
yeah.
They live in spreadsheets, and that is a reality.
Mm,
They're an organization that's quarterly driven and results and P&L statements and
mm,
board reports and all that. So he said to me, I need to quantify that this is such a better way of working. And that for me was a trigger to say, oh, I think we should value stream map or metrics-based process map the before and the after. And it was really simple. It was said, right, if I could just have a couple of hours, let's look at all of the things that you used to do to deliver increments of this product,
mm,
a product used by workshop retailers. And we organized it like a value stream.
mm.
I did one difference here. I introduced swim lanes where I
Yeah.
said,
Mm,
if the people to do the thing in the value stream comes from a particular department, let's give them a different swim lane.
yeah.
And so there were about 15 different swim lanes. And then to your point, measures.
Yeah.
Let's capture three measures. Let's ask ourselves for each of these things, how long
Mm,
does it take to do actually do the thing, spend the energy, actually doing the work
mm,
take. And even if it's a finger in the air guess, doesn't matter.
mm,
Then let's capture how long does it take to get from the previous part of the stream from the moment that finishes to the point that the next part of the stream starts. So that includes doing the actual thing, but it
Mm,
also includes the delay, the waiting,
mm. Handover
the
time and everything else.
the lead. Yeah, that you raise a ticket, the
Mm,
ticket and gets allocated and assigned and has to get approved and all that. Okay, that's in that lead time.
mm,
And then finally, let's capture what's the rate of completeness and accuracy of doing that thing? Like, how often do we have to go back and
mm,
return to that because something was missing or something was incorrect? And we did this for a couple of hours, and there was an epiphany moment. They just said, no wonder it takes us 38 weeks to do a release of this software. No wonder,
mm,
because look at all of the handoffs and handovers, and look at the time that's being wasted of idle time. And it just became it almost then became a motivation to do, okay, well let's now look at the new way that we've
mm,
now just started, which is a
mm,
product team. So
mm.
cross-functional product team, T-shaped people, no handoffs, no handovers, lots of automation in the DevOpsy side of things. And they were doing calculations where things that used to take 4 months could now take 2 days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Wow.
it became an enabler. It was like, we need to bring this into our board presentation. We've got to show them these
Mm,
because that's going to blow their minds.
mm,
Going to be the key to allowing us to grow this way of working. So it was a great story and a great set of metrics. And I think those two things really help. And the value stream mapping process
mm,
with metrics is just such a good communications tool to
mm,
articulate the value of ways of working.
mm. And I think the shift from, output and KPIs to outcomes. I mean, I
Yeah.
know you told me the backstory of the name of the company that you founded, Stellafy is, the constellation
Yeah.
of outcomes based on the constellation of stars. And you've spoken about those outcomes being connected. And one of my questions was, how do you visually map those outcomes in a way that the entire C-suite can see the coherence? Because that, I'm just picking up on your last point, which is, he saw the constellation of
Yeah.
time being wasted
Yes.
and therefore lack of outcome and therefore transformed it into something me measurable but more appropriate for what they wanted to achieve. So, how would you go about visually mapping outcomes, the work and the teams in a way that the C-suite could understand the coherence of outcome-driven metrics?
Yeah, and the key word you said there is connections. So, so I think visualization in a simple way as possible
Mm,
is such a good way to communicate progress and intent and
mm,
showcasing. So that example, it all was almost a C-suite concluded. Well, first of all, we need to keep this team together because look at what they're able to
yeah,
achieve every week.
sure.
And secondly, we need to get more teams working like this one. And that was the result we wanted from that tool.
Mm,
Um, I think the broader, the more macro context, and this is the work I've been doing a lot of focus on the last couple of years, has been the idea of each team in the organization really having focus on a particular outcome or set of outcomes that they are in control of and is their world. So we are going to work, we get
mm,
up every day to help make this outcome happen. And this is our outcome. And we have a small set of measures, not hundreds and hundreds of KPIs,
yeah.
two, three, four measures that really matter for that team. So that's
Mm,
step one. And a lot of facilitation I do is sort of to help you know,
mm,
identify what are the outcomes and what are the
mm,
measures that matter that will tell us that we're progressing towards them.
mm,
Then the next part is connections. So a team is usually not going to, it can deliver some value, but it's delivering value to some other part of the organization. So you might be a platform team and
mm,
building a platform so that an engineering team or a marketing team can do their job quicker.
mm,
Platform team will have outcomes and measures that matter to them, but they're connected to outcomes and measures that matter to each product engineering team or each
mm,
marketing team or each sales team. And then each of those are probably connected to some kind of business line or business outcome. Um, and then they're connected maybe to some kind of strategic organizational outcome. And I think when people can, first of all, understand their own outcomes and the measures that get there,
Mm,
and see the causal effect that they have on other people,
mm,
empathy, that contextual awareness really helps them reduce waste because they're thinking about, well, yeah, we're doing this to build this measure, but we're helping those guys over there
mm,
move their needle. And then
mm.
those guys are saying, well, we're doing our work to help that. So this idea of the constellation was they're like stars. All of those
Yeah.
things are like stars. And we want them to be bright, energetic, full of energy, you know,
Mm,
needles moving to deliver outcomes, but then we want them to join into constellations with other stars or other teams
mm,
and really join the dots from all the execution that's happening around the organization and how that joins up to the strategic goals and the strategic measures that matter to the organization as a whole.
mm, mm,
And I find when everybody understands that connection, they just feel much more engaged. They feel much more connected to the purpose of the
mm,
organization. It just got so many positive ripple effects to a high performing organization and a happy, motivated workforce, and that ends up with
mm.
happy, engaged customers, and it's all good.
And I love the analogy with the constellation of stars, which you can see on your website. But I think this idea of connecting the dots and connecting people and connecting talent and connecting value is very powerful. I mean, a lot of organizations and teams will cling to their KPI dashboards
Yeah,
because they feel safe. And that's
yeah.
the way we've always done it. And that's what goes to the top in terms of reporting. So, how do you help them move, Tim, from that safety to a more risk embracing sort of learning stance, but while still retaining some type of governance? Because my experience is when you get small pockets of people really going agile in large organizations, one of their issues is interacting with the rest of the organization, which is not built or governed like that yet.
Yeah, yeah. So there's an analogy that I like to use here. So I live in the south of England in a city of Winchester.
Mhm.
And when I get in my car and I drive to London, um, something I'll do when I'm on the motorway is I will have on my dashboard in my car, I will have access to lots of data, lots of metrics. There'll be my fuel gauge and my speedometer and my
Mm,
levelometer and the temperature gauge and oil temperature, all of that stuff, right? And I definitely need to keep an eye on those things, right? I don't need to obsess. I'm not just going to stare at the fuel gauge. I'll just
mm,
glance at it every now and again. I will also, because I'm not very good at directions, I also use my sat nav, my
yeah.
satellite navigation, to say I want to go to this address. That's my destination. And I will probably look at that more regularly because
Mm,
that's going to tell me, am I heading in the right direction? How much progress have I made? Am I getting closer? Have I done a wrong turning? And the dashboard stuff is a little bit like KPIs and health metrics. It is important that we keep an
mm,
eye on those. It's
mm,
useful because when something goes wrong, you want to know about it. We don't want to obsess over it. But there are two or three things in the sat nav that are really helping tell me, am I making progress in the immediate direction, the
mm,
immediate destination I want to get to? And these are a bit like objectives and key results.
mm.
And that's the difference between KPIs and OKRs,
Okay.
objectives and
Mm,
results, because KPIs are health, and you can have lots of them and they're useful. OKRs tell me, am I going the right direction? And
mm,
I limit how many of these I can look at any one time because I want to create focus.
mm,
So, back to those stars are typically got a small set of OKRs around them. So I really encourage teams to have those OKRs, those directional metrics, just to tell us where are we trying to get to this month? Where are we trying
mm.
to get to this quarter? And then keep an eye on those health metrics and
Yeah.
and KPIs. And that might tell us that the next quarter we need to pull one of these into being an OKR.
Mm,
So yeah, I use that analogy to sort of try and not obsess too much over too many metrics, but to create focus,
yeah.
and then create the alignment to those bigger things.
And because of, and I love that analogy because of course overwhelm is real, isn't it, in today's organizations? And the focus that you need to cut through the digital noise and the noise of an organization is huge. And it brings me to the idea of the cultural shifts. So, what you call the foundation. What is the foundation that you see as core to making this product value stream transformation work?
Um, I think the core is really collaboration, right? The
Mm,
foundation is collaboration, and uh, that is when we talk about agile and modern ways of working. What we're really talking about is getting people talking to each other and
mm,
collaborating with each other and feeling safe to collaborate, whether that's business people talking to other business people or techie people
mm.
talking to techie people or techie and business people and users. It's the core foundation is all about collaboration. Um, and having really great collaboration is much easier said than done
Yeah,
because
totally.
organizations, people, there's fear and there's governance, and then there's sometimes unhelpful measures, and then there's unhelpful reporting and unhelpful reward structures,
Yeah.
which actually deter collaboration. And I think this is the job really of organizational leaders to
Mm,
identify what are the things we can do to remove the blockers to enable much
mm,
safer collaboration,
mm,
a much more experimental mindset where people feel safe to try new things and
mm,
collaborate with each other and get things wrong and measure what matters, but also not be beaten up if the measure is going the wrong direction, but
mm.
learn from it so that we can adapt and course correct. Um, so I think, yeah, that culture of collaboration and safety is really the foundation.
And it could be very simple, small things, can't it? And into what I call micro shifts. So,
Mm.
Tim, what micro shifts would you be looking to put into a first leadership roundtable to start shifting from project mindset to product mindset?
Yeah, so I think it's the micro shift is starting small, right? It's
Mm,
not trying to transform every department, every part of the organization, every team, but identifying one team or one part of value in the organization and say,
mm,
let's let's try something different for
mm,
a time box period of time. Let's run it for 2 months. Um, and let's get some good coaching, good facilitation to help do that. And then out of that experiment phase, we want two things. We want a story, it's very visual.
mm,
I love to photograph and video
mm.
everything as much as possible, because I just think telling stories about this journey that this team or small group of teams have gone on is really helpful when
Yeah.
it comes to growing.
Mm,
Metrics, we talked about this already, but
mm,
metrics are just such a key. So if we can get mind-blowing metrics and be able to tell a story of that one small team, then we've got this catalyst. We've
mm.
got this almost this seed of infectious enthusiasm, assuming it's worked, and generally it
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
It's like everybody think we need to do more of this. The metrics tell us this, the story tells us, the people are telling this, the customers are telling this. What can we now do to get a team of teams working like this?
Yeah. Mm,
So I'm really all about that kind of organic, infectious enthusiasm
mm.
rather than trying to apply a massive scaled framework
Yeah.
across the org
I agree.
where mindset just doesn't shift like that. It needs to, the mindsets need to go on that organic journey as
Mm.
well.
And often large-scaled frameworks are quite rigid in themselves anyway, aren't they? So they just get shoehorned into existing
They do.
rigidity. Let's put it that way.
I
Yeah.
think I think those. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've used a lot of those frameworks, and they've become frameworks for a reason.
Yeah, of
They
course.
are good, but they're a bit like I see them a bit like a big toolbox.
Mm,
Um, and I always tell a story when I hire a plumber to come and fix my toilet.
mm,
Don't tell the plumber what tools or what order or say, oh,
yeah.
I want you to follow this. I expect that plumber to bring with them a big toolbox and have
Yeah.
lots of tools that will end to end address the problem. They'll diagnose the problem, they'll investigate the solution, they'll put the fix in, they'll test it, they'll clean up afterwards. That end to end value.
Yeah.
And I won't tell them what tools or sell them to follow a framework. I expect them to come to that and to learn which tools are really good for the job. Um, I kind of think frameworks are a little bit like that. They're not
Yeah.
supposed to be rigid and followed to the letter, but they're
Mm.
supposed to give you some guidance as
Yeah.
to what tools work. And you try them, and if they work, great, keep using them.
And if they don't, yeah.
Throw it back into the toolbox and you try something different.
Yeah. Which is why I think you can't just copy and paste, what model are you using? Spotify's model, this model, that model. Well, it's about the model that works for you, isn't it? And
Absolutely. And
I
I
don't
think Spotify say this themselves. We call it Spotify because we are Spotify. We want
fine.
everybody else to do that. But it's great inspiration. We can all learn and think, oh, okay, how could we apply some of that
Mm,
learning and try it out ourselves? But
mm.
yeah, it's Spotify models and classic one there.
Yeah, but like any buzzwords or popular subjects, popular approaches, it comes with quite a lot of hype and
Mm.
everyone has their own definition. So in your experience, Tim, what's the biggest illusion that you see that organizations have about being product centric? And how do you get them to see that? That may be not
Yeah,
the reality.
yeah, it's a good question. And you're right. Over the years, there's been so many buzzwords,
Yeah.
and they've I think it's become a challenge for us, transformation
Mm.
agents.
Yes.
Um, and you've got agile and design thinking and lean and DevOps and product centric and OKRs and
Yeah.
um, more and more I am trying to avoid use of the language. It's different for every organization and client, and I recognize there are levels of emotion
Mm.
around terminology.
Yeah.
I think it's important to, meet the organization, the customer where they are, and
Yeah.
use the language that
Totally.
they're comfortable
Mm.
with. Um, I worked with a CEO recently who said, "Oh, I hate OKRs, objectivity. Oh, I used them at another organization. They were awful." And I said, well, what about if we had goals and measures and experiments? Oh, I love those. I'm all about experiments and the idea of measuring and having it. And I'm thinking, well, under the hood, it's the same principles and philosophy.
Yeah.
I'm not head up on OKRs. I'm not head up on.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's much more about focusing on the principles and the
Mm.
values behind these things.
Mm.
And like any good business or consulting skills, coaching skills, you find the language that's going to work, you find the terminology that's going to work, where we can debuzzify,
Yeah.
use visualization,
Yeah.
use analogies, use stories, use
Mm.
photos. I think it's a much better way to bring the principles and the values to life rather than obsessing over,
What
particular
word you use?
terms.
Mm.
Yeah, something. I think
Mm.
that's probably what I find, and more I get a bit nervous if I bring out the A word like agile or I
Yeah.
start to mention something like Scrum. That doesn't work, something like that. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's often what gets bandied around when people are talking about the strategy. Which brings me to leadership. I mean, time is running, but I can't not ask you about leadership in terms of what it brings. And, it's great that you've just mentioned the CEO.
Yeah.
If you were advising a CEO starting this journey tomorrow, or a CIO, or a CFO, or a CTO, or somebody who's part of the C-suite and therefore, one, has decisionary power, two, is making decisions for the whole organization, and three, is role modeling things because people always look up. So, if what would the first three moves be that you would advise him or her to do, Tim, if it said on the strategy piece of paper, we need to, or we want to move from a product organization to a product operating model. This
Mm.
isn't done in any other part of our organization yet.
Mm. Um, so the first thing I would probably explore is why. Okay,
Hmm.
the why question is so important, and I probe a lot because I think it's really important that we're aligned on what is the problem we're trying to solve by
Mm,
moving to a product operating model, and why now,
mm,
and how are we going to measure it
mm,
for that at that level at the C-suite?
mm,
What does success look like, and what are the probes we can put in to measure as we go along? Because it's one of those you don't want to go into a product operating model transformation and for it to run for several years and then find out actually somebody thought it was something very different and we have no
yeah.
measurement to show and a lot of investment wasted, and that happens a lot.
Mm,
Um, so I think definitely I would have that one-on-one conversation first. Then I think there is so much to be said to getting people into a room to get
yeah.
alignment on that. So um, I think there is a strategy workshop
Mm,
where we want to make sure we have shared understanding, alignment, and focus on what matters. And there are various tools
mm,
and approaches and methods that can help facilitate that discussion. But you want to get that leadership level on the same page and not have any kind of competing priorities or misalignments. Because if we have it at that level at the
mm,
beginning, it's just going to fester in all directions. Um, so that'd be the second thing. And then I think it's like, how can we get a proof point? How can we test this
mm,
end to end vertically through the organization as quickly as possible, as cheaply as possible?
mm,
So not invest in what we think the answer is across the board, but it's back to that. Let's find something that's going to be valuable that we can focus on testing this operating model out
mm,
as if it were a startup, as if that was the
yeah.
entire organization.
Mm,
Get the story, get the measures that matter, connect the measures up and down the organization, and then put lots and lots of feedback and the learning loops in there because we will not get it right up front.
mm,
Absolutely be what we think it is at the beginning, it will end up being something different.
yeah.
Building those measurable probes, those feedback loops, and that learning into the system of work, it will be key.
Mm,
So I would get all of that in place, and that would be my starting point. And I test with CEOs if they're bought into that idea. I'm
yes.
the CEO at the minute of an energy training company, and he's awesome. He is. When I met him, within 10 minutes of talking to him, I realized you're one of the really good guys. Your
Mm,
mind is in the right place, your heart's in the right place. You're doing it for all the right reasons, and doesn't always happen, but I love it when you do.
yeah.
You work with C-suites like that.
Yeah. A meeting of the minds.
Absolutely,
I'm talking
absolutely.
about constellations. Um,
Yeah,
but there are always people in organizations, and from your experience to date, Tim, you always find people who say, "Yeah, we've done Agile, it didn't work here. We've done Agile, we've already done Agile. We've tried Agile and Safe and Scrum and Kanban. It doesn't work here." What would what would your not your answer? What do you think their blocking point is? From everything you've seen and all the diagnostics you've done and all the different sizes of organizations you've worked with, because this is a human issue, isn't
yeah,
it?
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm,
That's it. And some of the coaches that work with my company at the minute have had
mm,
exactly the problem that you've described recently. I've learned you you have to respect people have tried these things, right?
yeah.
You try and tell them up front, you haven't really, or you're
Mm,
wrong, or you
mm,
haven't done it. You instantly get defense
of
and
course. Mm,
you've lost that respect and trust. So I actually welcome the fact when people say we've been doing this for years, we've tried it
mm,
for years. I think the retrospective is such an important and valuable practice to do here,
mm.
just to really understand, um, what has worked, and there will be stuff that's
It
worked.
works.
We,
Yeah.
we need to amplify that, and we need
Mm,
to grab into what were the ingredients that did work, and usually
mm,
it's that, and then to get that learning as to well, where can we optimize further, and there is a change curve on this,
of
and there will
course.
be individuals who are resistant to that.
Mm,
I look at organizations and there are sometimes individuals and they feel threatened by some of this. I
mm,
understand it. It's like,
mm,
well, if we do this, what does that mean for my managerial role? Or if we
Mm,
automate that, what does that mean for my team? Because they
mm,
so there's it is a real tough change management skill.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
and I think you've got to go at the pace that people are comfortable with. We'll stretch them.
mm,
And I think there's tools around, getting the measures right. What are the little things we're going to try and do?
mm,
And and slowly, creating communities. I think that's the other thing.
mm,
One of my team said this to me today, actually. It's not really for me to go and tell people, but
yeah.
we can create an environment where team members are starting to just feel safer with each other and raise ideas so it becomes
Mm,
more organic ground up,
mm,
built from the ground up change.
mm,
You can get there. Yeah, there will always be difficult ones. It's
of
never an easy
course.
one, but
Mm,
it's a like you say, it's a people thing, and I think there's just different things to experiment and try
mm.
into that world.
And it reminds me of what you were saying about meeting organizations and people where they're at.
Yeah.
And it's not a quick fix, is it?
No,
So,
no, it's not
mm,
transformation because often it's a lot. We're not learning. We're actually unlearning.
yes.
Unlearn something that we've been doing for decades and we
Yeah.
feel safe and comfortable about. And, it's the thing that, helps us, pay the mortgage and all that. So it's a
Mm,
complex, very, very complex set of circumstances. But
mm,
yeah, so I think you just have to really appreciate and respect where
mm,
people are on the journey and see that as it is a
mm,
journey. And we're looking for small incremental improvements that we can see over time and little mindset changes over time.
mm.
Do find pennies drop. People will grab things at different times, but they do drop, and we then start to see the bigger impact materialize, and then celebrate success when that does happen.
Yeah, and the marble jar filled with pennies. Nice.
Really,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. Tim, thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience, your stories, your insight. Would you have a final call to action for our listeners who are thinking, okay, I need to start putting together something more cross-functional, something more agile. Where should we start?
Yeah, I mean, I I love chatting to anybody who is in a change
Mm,
agent role, whether that is an external consultant or consultants or an internal change agent. What I'm doing with my company at the minute is trying to amplify their impact,
mm,
trying to connect the impact of their change work to measures that matter in their clients or their own
mm.
organization. I'm always open to chat. I just love chatting about this, you probably tell. And so please, you can find me on LinkedIn. My company Stellify, we have a platform which is where the whole star chart thing comes to life, and it's also a place where you can coach and deliver coaching on it. It's completely free. There's no credit card, so if you want to go in and play around, there's a load of coaching resources in there. It's totally free. Just go to stellify.com, STELLAFAI.com, and you can play around and book time with me if you're interested in having a chat.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'll put those in the show notes so that people can find you and so that we can connect the dots. Thank you,
Brilliant.
Tim.
Going to stars.
Thanks for, yeah, thanks for a great conversation.
Thanks, Susie. Really good.
Thanks.